movie.
Alright everyone, and welcome to Spooky's Old World Edinburgh. I'm Stephen.
And I'm Becky.
And this is a series where we go around Edinburgh looking for signs of the old world. And by that we mean a civilization that is said to have existed before us and built a lot of these old buildings that we have simply inherited. And we'll talk more about that throughout these series. So first we are off to the Craigentinny marbles. So this is actually in a residential street, which is one reason why I love it so much. A street of 1930s bungalows, and then this bang in the middle of it. It really does look like something from the old world, in my opinion. So the Craigentinny marbles, that's what they're known as, they're actually said to be the mausoleum of William Henry Miller, who died in 1848. It says they get their name from their marble panels on each side, designed by Alfred Gately, one which you'll see here. This one's known as the Song of Moses and Miriam, supposedly depicting the Israelites singing a song of celebration for their escape and for the destruction of the Egyptian army. I don't know why the scenes are the pics, but they do look amazing, don't they? As I said, this is meant to be a mausoleum of William Henry Miller, who was a wealthy landowner and MP who retired here after losing his seat in 1848, his parliamentary seat that is. So yeah, it says he died in 1848 and a distant relative, Samuel Christie, had the task of executing his will, and that will said that he wanted to be buried in a 20 or 40 foot ditch. I've seen both numbers mentioned on different sites, but 20 or 40 foot ditch in a lead lined coffin with a large stone mausoleum built over it, which he left 20 grand for. And this is said to be that mausoleum, but look at it. I mean, it just looks amazing. I mean, I don't know if it's really the true story. I mean, it is a politician we're talking about here, eh? Anyway, the mausoleum itself was designed by David Rind and completed in 1856. That's the official narrative, anyway. The two bas-relief sculptures by Alfred Gately, it says they're depicting part of the biblical narrative of the Exodus, and it says that they're added later. The relief on the north face, which is this one, is called the Overthrow of Pharaoh in the Red Sea, showing the destruction of Ramesses II's army during the crossing of the Red Sea, apparently. So two Egyptian themed sculptures. Really interesting. And just a couple more looks now before moving on to our next location. But yeah, is this a piece of the old world? We think possibly.
Next, we are off to Dander Hall to see this lovely archway and explore some of its history. Some may argue this area isn't part of Edinburgh, as it is on the outskirts and was a former mining village. However, today, with the ever-expanding boundaries of Edinburgh, we are including it. We found this by accident while attending a gala day in the area actually, but we saw this arch and wondered why it was standing there. Stick around to find out. First up, please enjoy the views of this arch, which, like the Craigentinny marbles, just looks completely out of place. Just like something from a different world, to be honest. Check out the sculpture on top. Is it a lion? Or is it maybe closer to a sphinx with a human head and an animal body, like we'll see later in the video? We're not sure. Today, this arch stands outside the Dander Hall Miners' Welfare and Social Club, but it is clearly from something else from another time. So, just like in our Niddry Mausoleum video, using the old 1940s aerial photos, we can see what used to be here, just the same as the Niddry Mausoleum, which is only a mile distance from here as the crow flies. This was once part of a grand house and estate, Woolmet House, which we are looking at from above here on the right. So, here it is. You can see the archway on the left there, and right away you can still sort of tell that it looks out of place. Look how grand it looks, and not to knock the house, but the quality and grandeur of the arch is just incomparable. Could the arch actually be from something even older? Who knows? Anyway, this is Woolmet House, which Wikipedia has a small entry for on the Dander Hall page. It says Woolmet House was a large mansion built for Archibald Napier in around 1590 as a wedding present from his wealthy father Archibald Napier of Merchiston Castle. Again, very similar to Niddry House in our Niddry Mausoleum video. That link is in the description. It was demolished in the 1950s due to subsidence caused by Woolmet colliery. Some carved stones from Woolmet House were actually incorporated into the Castle of May around 1990, which we actually visited in 2018. You can check out the Up North video on our channel. But for now, here is a final look at the arch.
So now we are off to the very, very centre of Edinburgh, in an area known as the Old Town, to St Giles Cathedral. Now look at this, amazing, right? As mentioned earlier, there are loads of theories. Many buildings in our world were actually built by a previous civilization. Now I'll leave some links to videos in the description, but one part of these theories that I've always found fascinating myself is that these sort of spires, like you say there, were part of some sort of energy creating device. Now those spires are very grand, but you do see spires similar all over Edinburgh and of course the world. We can delve further into that in a future episode if you like, but there are plenty of other videos explaining these ideas very well on the internet, so I'll try to link a few. But here's some of the buildings in the area. This is actually the city chambers that you're looking at now. Just thought we'd grab a wee bit of that footage because this is the surrounding buildings of the cathedral. Now, what you're looking at now is actually Market Cross. Said that this was actually moved here from its original location. I don't know about that, but you'll see a unicorn on the top. That's because the unicorn is actually the national animal of Scotland, believe it or not. But anyway, here we are walking around the cathedral. So this is St Giles Cathedral. Now, something to mention while looking around here, something to keep in mind, is that the theory that we were talking about just a little bit earlier on there about the spires possibly being some sort of energy creating device, that sort of expands a little bit to cathedrals as well, with the idea that cathedrals might have been some energy creating, places, structures, and that those spires are a part of that sort of that method. But anyway, just something to keep in mind. So this is St Giles Cathedral, and already, I mean, just look at all this stuff going on. Look at the carvings, just amazing work. Really fascinating. This building is actually covered in little intricate details that the longer you walk around and look at this thing, you just pick out all these wee bits, and it's just fascinating. Great building. We thought this wee window looked particularly cool. But here we are again, so just looking around the outside of the building. Now, as with a lot of this stuff, it's really hard to find just a simple date of construction. But the cathedral's own website does actually say that King David first founded St Giles in 1124. Now, founded is a word that comes up a lot when you look up a lot of these buildings, instead of constructed. So I always look at that as it's hard to tell if that's when the building was built or if it was built after or before. Maybe it was already there, because founded doesn't really mean built in my opinion. It could mean other things. I wanted to show these though. These were on the building across. I thought this was very similar to what we saw on top of the arch at Woolmet House in our last location. So just felt it was important to point that out. But looking around, I mean, look at these incredible, as I said, wee carvings everywhere you look. And the inside is just as fascinating, so stick around for that. But yeah, the website does actually continue on to say that St Giles actually predates most of the old town, which I found also another intriguing point. Um, because yeah, I think the prospect, and this is what we always go back to us to imagine them building these grand structures, these amazing structures. I mean, look at where we saw the spires just a few minutes ago, and we'll see them again. But just imagine a civilization building all of that, shaping all that stone, carving all of those things, using horse and carts and things to bring it all onto site. And I just find it fascinating, and I find it just mind blowing. I don't know how a society could do that. I think it's absolutely amazing if that's how things happen. And just like at Craigentinny Marbles, you've got these amazing bas relief sculptures just opposite the cathedral. And there's a wee peek. It was at one of those amazing statues you get on top of the domes. There's a few of them we've noticed around Edinburgh. And we'll include them on future episodes of this. But just behind this John Knox statue there, you'll see the cathedral itself. I mean, the view from this angle is remarkable. Again, with these spires, what do you reckon? Is this part of an energy creating structure at one point, of which we've forgotten the knowledge of, or it's been covered up? What do you reckon? I find it really fascinating. It really does look like something from another world. It doesn't fit in with our buildings or our architecture at all. I mean, it's just like something, just slap bang from another planet, another civilization. But anyway, we're moving towards entering the structure, going inside the cathedral. So I'm not going to be doing as much talking in there, just a wee bit here and there, and I'll let you enjoy the views and gather your thoughts. I mean, look at the entrance alone. It's just incredible work. And it's even more incredible when you consider how old some of this is meant to be, and carved by hand and things like that. Also interesting, just to point out some of the animals that you see there, the mythical creatures, sort of like griffin-like stuff, dragons, things in there. All relevant to a lot of these old world stories. But anyway, here we are on the inside of the cathedral, and I will jump back in a moment. Back again, just to note a couple of things. So, where you see the arrow appear, this is actually the bottom of the main tower on the outside, where the spires are, which I thought was important to note. And also this reminded us of the Scott Monument, which is another location we will be visiting in this series in a future episode. Smiley faces. Back again as we now enter the Thistle Chapel. Now, apparently this part is more modern, what we're just about to enter. They call it the Thistle Chapel. It says it was finished in only 1911 and designed by a guy called Robert Lorimer. So yeah, this is said to be a lot more modern, but I'm not so sure. I mean, look at it. It looks amazing. Whether it's modern or not, this is a really good piece of work. I mean, look at that. It just boggles the mind. But yeah, you've got all these sort of wooden structures around it. These are stalls where the 16 knights, they say, would stand. And there's different sort of placards. The women explained it all when we went there. Very interesting, but not what we were looking for. We want to see the shell of the building, and we want to understand what it was originally built for. But it's all really fascinating stuff. And again, the shapes of the chairs actually remind us of the Scots Monument. So that is something interesting we thought to note. And the ceiling is a real amazing piece of work. So, I mean, so many carvings and things on it. It's just real grand. I mean, look at that. Mind-boggling. And if this was only done in 1911, really, really good work. I think for a more modern building, right? But continuing on, this is us walking around to the other side of the cathedral now as we circle around and make our way back to the entrance. Some great things to see on this side though as well, such as this. I thought this looked a lot more modern. It looked a lot of clean, really modern. So I was really impressed actually at how they managed to do that because, I mean, just looks amazing. But yeah, we thought it looked much more modern, and you could actually see at the side, which we'll get a wee look at later, where you could see like an old sort of finish or design there just on the left, and we'll get a closer look at that in a moment, just after a wee peek at this. And here's a bit we were talking about. You can clearly see some old stuff there. But yeah, it just really makes you wonder what this structure originally looked like away at the start, away hundreds of years ago when it was first built. At least that's what it does to my brain. So just before we leave St Giles, here's a final look at that carvings on the front entrance and the tower itself. Here's a very brief spookies treat before you go, just some extra footage of around Edinburgh while we were out that day. If there's anywhere in particular you think we should check out in Edinburgh or you'd like to see in a future Old World Edinburgh video, please do leave it in the comments and we'll do our best to include that. But we've got lots of ideas and lots of places that we hope to visit. So stick around, please. But thank you for joining us today for our first ever Old World Edinburgh video. So what do you think? Was St Giles, was these other places, were they built by people with basic tools hundreds and hundreds of years ago, with horse and cart? Or could they have been built by a more capable civilization that maybe had more technology? Things to think about. But thanks for joining us. If you liked the video, please give it a wee like.
Or subscribe if you haven't already.
But yeah, thanks again, and please join us next time. Cheerio.